But this is a Harrild Treadle Platen press, and it's one of a range. They came in different sizes. This is, I believe, is number 2, as it were, the second smaller. There was one bigger than this and 2 smaller ones. And when the press runs, it runs remarkably quietly. I mean, it's hard to hear any sound except the faint tap of a pecker that drives the ink disc round. But otherwise, the press runs with hardly any sound at all. Nice engineering, old-fashioned cast iron engineering, I would guess, from the 1910 period, just before or just after the 14 War. There's flywheel driven, but there's a foot brake, which works pretty well. You see it on my left foot there we go. And when you're running the press, it doesn't take prints until you tell it to go on to impression. And here we are sewing on to impression now, and the platen moves just that bit further forward and takes a full proper weight proof. Now, to set the press up, you want to put a bit of ink, and I always use Lawrence's ink because it's far better than the commercial inks. It's just better made. And I put onto a press of this size, and with 3 form rollers, not 2 like an Adana, but 3, I put on about the amount of, let's say, a French bean, maybe 3 green peas, something of that sort. And I also put some dryers with it because Lawrence's ink doesn't dry that quick. And I run it round and round and round vigorously to get a really even spread all over the disc. And then, even I'm not satisfied with that, I put the rollers on, and this happens like this. And I'll put one on just for now, but you get the idea. If you move the press up to the 3/4 position and pull out one of these at either end and insert the shaft. I'll go through this again in a moment. This end of is closed and that end's the open end. Hold it down with the side of your hand, don't get oil on the rollers, and there we are. Now let me just go through that again with the second roller. There's a square section on the shafts at both ends, and there's a square hole in a round roller, which is a bit strange. And you have 2 of these, and that goes into the closed end first and to the open end second, and we put the little tension sprung roller bearing collar, tension spring collar, pulls the roller down onto the ink disc, and the third one now on. And though the rollers aren't very large diameter, the inking power of the press is pretty good. 3 is a lot better than 2, and there is an ink dust attachment if you ever need it. Now here we are with the rollers on. I'm off impression, of course, at this stage, and I'll run this up and down for quite a few minutes, perhaps 3-4 minutes, to make sure the ink on the disc is really evenly spread, really flat, and that the ink rollers have got a nice even flat coating. Next I'll collect the chase, which is we saw in the previous film. You lower it down onto 2 shoulders at the bottom and retain it with this clamp here. The type is now in the chase and clamped to the bed of the press. I can run the rollers up, and when I'm happy there's done it perhaps twice, there's ink on the type of an appropriate amount, I'll go on to impression, close the press and take a pull on a bit of rough newsprint. We then go through a sequence of operations designed to get the job in just the right place, and that comes in a number of ways. But for a side lay, for side position, I use my double-sided tape on a little coin, my side lay coins, and there's a coin in position. Bear in mind I've got a piece of wood that's going to print a black line down here throughout the job, but well clear of my paper for my actual work. And then to get it up and down, I have put my own improvement on this press. It's based on the Adana principles, but it was never installed on the Harrild presses. You had to put these little lay quads on 3 positions or some equivalent device. But under these bolts I was able to tuck a homemade aluminium object, special screwdriver made, special flat-headed bolts, and this can be moved up and down. So I don't have to fiddle with lay quads trying to get good position. I just slacken off these bolts a little and slide them up, and I can feed in my job to the foot lay. I can swing it to get it nice and square, and I go over to my side lay. Well, I know just exactly what the right position is. With the press will of course come the special homemade screwdriver. And one other thing, while we're talking about it, I'll just take the chase out for a moment. When we've changed the packing, which you will do from time to time, you do that by levering under here and under here a large springy metal clamp which holds the top of the packing, and there's an identical one at the bottom. You leave this one up, take the packing out and change it for new every few jobs, but you may find that you want to change the parallelism of the platen to the bed of the press, And you do that by adjusting these large nuts here, the lock nuts at the back and the position nuts at the front. And you have to have a suitable spanner, which I'm not giving you. The 1/2 a turn, 1 flat or a flat and a half is about all right, and you swing these two this way and the top of the platen moves in, and we again achieve that true parallelism at the moment of impact. When they come together, they've got to close just nicely parallel, and you may need to adjust the bottom ones, same thing exactly, but it's a bit more awkward to do. Packing, of course, is a matter of some precision on a clamshell press, which this is, and has the same principle as an ordinary book. It's hinged at the bottom and it closes. So if you don't get the packing exactly the same as before, then you will have to do a bit of tweaking. And to have a micrometer, not expensive, cheap Japanese one, to make sure your packing is pretty much the same thickness is probably helpful. Just as a reference point, ordinary newspaper is about 1/4 thou thick, and tissue paper, as in cigarette paper, is about 1 to 1.5 thou thick. We always work in thous. The press is built inches, so we work thous to live with that. One other refinement we put on the press, if you find your roller bearer straps, that's these things here which provide friction to drive the rollers round well, if they get dry or shrink and get old and tired, you can replace them, and I can give you strips of rubber to do that. But also we can adjust them ever so slightly in and out, so the rollers, the ink layer on the rollers just kisses the type, and there are 4 little tiny nuts here made for adjusting my roller bearers, which are these things here, one either side. The press in fact is quite an ordinary piece of engineering, but as Treadle Platen presses go, these Harrild ones are very good. It's a copy of an American design, I believe, perhaps even a pirated copy. But at the moment of impression, a special beam swings up and stands behind the platen and gives it that extra grunt. I use this for all our books that we printed from the year 2000 till about 2009, 8 perhaps, about Christmas 2008, when we got a larger Victoria press which works on a different principle and is behind me, and we now run that one all the time. But this fella has produced most of our work for 7 years without any problems at all. It comes, of course, with a vast collection of spares, which is all on the floor tucked round the back here. The feed table is the original one and shows signs of its age, but I have to tell you, I have a good deal of affection for this machine. We've improved it with our extra devices, and it's done us proud. It just needs the TLC of a bit of oil in all the various oil holes around the machine, which are very obvious.